So let's take a closer look at autotrophs. Glucose and other organic compounds are broken down and energy released by the process of aerobic respiration and the use of oxygen to convert organic matter back to carbon dioxide and water. This process is the net chemical change of photosynthesis. So let's see what we remember from general biology or biology. Now, photosynthesis, it's done by autotrophs. And what is needed for photosynthesis to occur? We need carbon dioxide, you need water, and you need light. Alright? With these three components, you will make glucose and oxygen. And glucose is sugar. Now, aerobic respiration means in the presence of air or oxygen, not necessarily air, but that's a way to remember it, oxygen. And then there is also anaerobic respiration. And what is that in the presence of? That's in the presence of just carbon dioxide. So it does not have oxygen present. But you can also produce energy from that as well, but the energy is not there isn't as much energy for anaerobic respiration as there is for aerobic respiration. And certain end products from anaerobic respiration are methane gas, ethyl alcohol, acetic acid, which happens in us if our muscles use all of our oxygen, and hydrogen sulfide, which happens at the abyssal zone in the hydrothermal vents. Biodiversity is the amazing variety of Earth's genes, species, ecosystems, and ecosystem processes. And there are different kinds of biodiversity, like genetic diversity, looking at all the different types of genetic material. Species diversity, looking at the number of species present in different habitats. Ecological diversity, the different variety of terrestrials and aquatic ecosystems found in an area or on the Earth. Functional diversity, which was a new one for me, the biological and chemical process such as energy flow and matter cycling needed for the survival of species, communities, and ecosystems. Now, human cultural diversity is included as part of Earth's biodiversity by some people. Biodiversity is very important because it keeps us alive and supports our economies, and it also is renewable as long as humans live off the interests and not destroy the capital. So we cannot take more than we can replenish. If we do, then we will start using our capital instead of living off the interests. Now we're going to take a closer look at food webs and how energy flows through an ecosystem. Now up top we have a nice food chain here, and food chains and food webs help us understand how eaters and eaten and the decomposers are interconnected in an ecosystem. And the sequence of organisms as they're eaten is a food chain. Food webs are multiple food chains combined together. And this word trophic, remember what's trophic mean? Dealing with energy, are the feeding levels of organisms within an ecosystem. One, you first start out with the producers, your plants, your autotrophs. And then two, your primary consumers, those that are eating the plants, your herbivores. And then your secondary consumer, who's consuming your primary consumer. And then last but not least, the tertiary consumer, the third level. The detritus and decomposers can be in this level, but they can also be in the secondary consumers as well, whether they're decomposing the primary consumer. Tertiaries are also the top predator. So if you look here, primary producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. Now at each step of this food chain, majority of the energy that was there at the level before is lost. 90% of it is lost. Only 10% goes on to the next level. And it's lost due to heat. That's why you're seeing this heat here. And heat meaning whether that energy is being used by that organisms or through the process of digestion. It's energy that is lost that is not transferred. It is used. So here we have a food web, and a marine food web at that. And a food web, if you remember, is multiple food chains together. So if we want to look at a single food chain here, we could start at one end and then follow where the arrows are going. And the arrow is pointing to what? Where the energy is going to. So the arrow always points to where the energy goes to. So within our food web, we have multiple food chains. Now the energy flows in a food web or food chain, it decreases each level as it goes through. And remember that only 10% is retained, so 90% of the energy is lost to heat. The dry weight of all organic matter within an the organism of a food web or food chain is called a biomass. And biomass is really important because we're going to be doing a lab looking at the biomass from a food chain dealing with owl pellets. And I know some of you have dealt with owl pellets before, and I know you'll be looking forward to that. Ecological efficiency is the term that describes the percentage of usable energy transferred as biomass from one trophic level to another, and it ranges from 2 to 4%, with a 10% being typical. That's where that 10% is the energy that's transferred, 90% is lost. The greater number of trophic levels in a food chain, the greater loss of usable energy. And that is also why there is only a certain amount of trophic levels. Because if you're at the top of the food chain, you have to consume so much more that which is below you to get the same amount of energy as something lower on the food chain is only consuming very little of. Because all that energy is lost as it transfers up to that secondary consumer or that tertiary consumer.